DC outside the Capitol building and speak to Steve Herman, Executive Director of the Jordan Center for Journalism, Advocacy and Innovation, and formerly the White House Bureau Chief for Voice of America. A lovely morning for you to talk to us from outside the Capitol, Steve. Good to see you. In your mind, what is the lasting legacy of Dick Cheney's?
Dick Cheney will be remembered as the most powerful vice president the United States ever had. I think if you talk to any presidential, vice presidential historian, they will agree with that. He really, especially in the first term of George W. Bush, overshadowed the president. If it wasn't for Dick Cheney having this amount of power, we would not be here right now talking about the death of a former U.S. vice president. He was that much of a real statutory figure.
And what were his core beliefs, do you think, Steve, particularly that were laid bare after 9/11, that really informed his approach to national security and also executive authority?
Well, he had the nickname in and out of the White House as Darth Vader. He was really seen, even among conservatives, as an arch-conservative, especially in terms of national security, forcefully using the U.S. military to invade other countries. After 9/11, he was very much for really stretching the boundaries of the U.S. Constitution for detentions, interrogations. He really was a very forceful figure, and he was able to get away with this, I think, because he had such tremendous connections from his time here at the U.S. Capitol as a congressman. He had also worked as Gerald Ford's chief of staff in that presidency. He was the consummate Washington insider, and in the conservative world was at one time the preeminent figure.
And what was his relationship like with George W. Bush?
Well, George W. Bush, even as president in the first term, went along with the jokes about Dick Cheney overpowering him, but it seemed to tire, especially by the end of the first term, and there was consideration by President Bush, when he was running for re-election, to drop Dick Cheney, and Cheney apparently even offered to drop off the ticket so that he would not overshadow George W. Bush in a second term. But ultimately, Bush decided to keep Dick Cheney on the ticket because he was such a valuable person for him, especially for doing all the so-called dirty work that would need to be done up here on Capitol Hill.
And Steve, what do you think it says about the Republican Party and just how much it's changed since those times, that we saw Dick Cheney actually casting a vote for Kamala Harris in the end?
Well, what that shows you is the Republican Party is no longer the Republican Party of Ronald Reagan and the Bushes and Dick Cheney. It is the Republican Party of Donald Trump. And in Donald Trump's eyes, unless you're 100% with him, you are on the outside and you will be vilified as much as he will vilify any Democrat. So it'll be very interesting to see later today what sort of statement comes out of the White House about the death of this former very powerful vice president, and even whether they'll agree to lower the flags to half staff, which would be typical in this type of situation with such a prominent political figure.
Yeah, we'll be watching to see if that happens, and indeed what the statement and reaction is from President Trump, perhaps on Truth Social, and from the White House as well. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. Steve Herman,
You're welcome.
There outside the Capitol building.